Good to resume.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll start with a brief introduction of myself, and then we go into topics. So my name is Sanjay Navandar. I'm a chartered accountant by profession and also a Kalani alum, like a lot of you. I secured All India Rank 1 in CA Final May 2014. Before this, I secured All India Rank 2 in IPCC and All India Rank 6 in CPT. I joined Boston Consulting Group immediately after my chartered accountancy in, I think, late 2014, early 2015. Right now, I'm working as a principal in BCG at Dubai office. In this 8 years at BCG, I've worked across multiple offices in Southeast Asia, India, United States, and now Middle East, and worked with multiple private sector and public sector clients in this engagement. I'll talk a bit about my projects further in the presentation. In terms of my personal background, I was born, brought up in Jaipur, have lived in more than 20 cities in last 8 years, but I still prefer to call Jaipur my home. I'm also an avid cricket fan. I absolutely love playing cricket every weekend. This is a routine I have not given up in last, I think, 15 years. And I love traveling around the world. Sometimes I also travel around with our cricket team so that I can watch live matches. A fun fact is, the cricket team that I'm part of in Dubai also has three other Kalani alums. So 30% of our team is made up of Kalani alum itself. That shows you the power of the organization we all have been part of and the network that we have been able to create around the world. I now move into the topics that we want to discuss today. I've kept three topics. One around the career options for chartered accountancy, a course with many career paths. Second, I dive deep into what is management consulting, or to say strategy consulting, some examples of the type of projects that are done, what are largest consulting firms, what does the market landscape look like, and finally, what is the life as a strategy consultant. Finally, as the last topic, I have kept how do we get into strategy consultant as a young chartered accountant. I'm sure this is one aspect you all would be really interested about. I start with the first topic. uh, CA course, if you see, one, I'm very passionate about CA course in general. I feel technically it is one of the most brilliant courses that has been designed around the world. And I'm saying this after being interacting with and after working in teams with multiple students from best of the colleges, be it IIMs, ISBs in India, or be it the Harvards, the Kellogg's, etc. of the world. This course is technically very sound, and all the subjects that we have studied in this course are almost fields of career options that are available for us as chartered accountants, right? So if you take all the subjects that you have in intermediate and CA finals, you can create broad buckets of what are the career options as CA. These are big branches of options for us. And then there is deeper expertise that one can delve into each of these courses, right? तो आप देखोगे, मैं सारे सब्जेक्ट्स को अगर रखूं, फाइनेंशियल मैनेजमेंट, फाइनेंशियल सर्विसेज, कैपिटल मार्केट, स्टॉक मार्केट, एक अपने आप में पूरी फील्ड है. देयर आर लॉट ऑफ ऑप्शंस अवेलेबल अंडर इट. द सेकंड ऑप्शंस कम अराउंड इज financial reporting, your standards, gaps, these Indian standards, US standards, European standards, and so on. The third services are around auditing and assurance services. A lot of new fields have come up within this also. There is environment and safety audits, to say. There are a lot of IT and digital related audits that have come up. There is trusteeship services which are also fast evolving. So this entire bucket is still around assurance services for me. Then you see taxation, the whole bucket of taxation of direct, indirect, international taxation, and so on. You will see people who are experts in each chapter of a tax of a particular country as well. Then there is corporate and economic law, both Indian global laws that you can dive deep into. The sixth topic is around operations and cost management, everything related to costing of products and services and making it efficient to save the resources. The seventh and eighth topic are, often these are topics that are dealt by a CA student as an adopted child, right? Topics around information technology and digital and strategy management. But these are also topics that are growing really fast in the current world that we are living in, right? I will focus entirely on strategy management for the rest of the discussion, but I wanted to lay out, this in front of you so that you start thinking about career options in a modular manner, similar to how our modules to say or syllabus is defined, right? And within each of these, there are n number of fields and opportunities that are available. Strategy management, for people to relate, is the same that we study in IPCC, right? You have put all have studied about the BCG growth share matrix. So this BCG is the same organization that I work in. So before we go deep into strategy management directly, there is one advice that I wanted to give you. This is, in general about career options, LinkedIn is your best friend. It will help you explore career options. It will help you learn from journeys that have been taken by other CAs, and it will help you build networks, right? So a tool, LinkedIn is a tool. How I used to, use it, or I even use it now, is to see if a person has become the CEO of a company or a CFO or a company or the presidents of the company. I just see what career path has been taken by, this person. So just these simple examples I start with, and I see कि अच्छा वो बंदे ने first of all in 1992 he joined Aditya Birla Group. I'm taking any random example. He joined Aditya Birla Group as a general manager. Then he was general manager in India for 4 years. Then he did a stint in maybe Singapore. Then he came to Middle East and was working for Star Cement. He became sort of a vice president or head of a function here. आफ्टर दैट वो बंदा जो है यूरोप चला गया, जो आदित्य बिरला ग्रुप का माइंस एंड मिनरल्स रिलेटेड बिजनेस है उसने वो संभाला. देन ही केम बैक टू इंडिया एंड देन स्लोली बिकेम लाइक द CEO of Ultratech. So this is a 20-25 years kind of journey that would have been taken by a person to reach to the top of the ladder. Now it is important ये journeys हम अभी से देखें and we follow it on LinkedIn to see अच्छा लोग क्या interesting options कर रहे हैं, what is growing opportunities that are coming up, what type of topics are people discussing about in a particular area of interest, right? I take like another example of Archana Sarthi, for example. I'm randomly picking it. She's also a Kalani alum. She's right now a director at EY Parthenon in US. Again, and she was my buddy in BCG when I had joined BCG. So I always keep a track of कि वो क्या कर रही है आजकल, वो किस टाइप के आर्टिकल्स पब्लिश कर रही है, what type of clients and discussions she's part of on LinkedIn and so on. So it helps me stay connected with people as well, and it helps me know what are different people doing in their lives, what are type of career opportunities that are coming up and so on. Right? You will be very amazed to see कि किस टाइप के करियर और किस टाइप के करियर paths have been followed by our senior alums in the chartered accountancy, profession itself. It's a bit sad that we don't have a very strong alum network as chartered accountants. So we are not able to stay in touch with everyone who has done so wonderful job. If we had an alum around the world. But now things are changing. We are creating some of these networks, professional networks as well. And then LinkedIn always remains your tool to help you with this networking part. Team, I'm not able to see any of you. So आप में से किसी को questions हो या कुछ भी, clarification, just keep asking. And if anyone wants to participate, feel free to participate. Okay, stop me and feel free to participate. I move to now the specific part on management consulting or strategy consulting, which we wanted to discuss. First, I'll start with the word. Management consulting and strategy consulting, they are often used, almost interchangeably, but they are slightly different technically. So management consulting क्या है? Management consulting is advisory services that are provided to the senior management of the organizations. And this could be related to business strategy, organizational performance, operational performance. It could also be related to taxation. It could be related to investments, etc., etc. So management consulting is a slightly broader concept. It includes all the advisory services that are provided to the top management of an organization. Strategy consulting is a narrow part of management consulting. Is it strategy consulting to say is only a subset of management consulting, which specifically focuses on business strategy, the performance of business, and different operational processes of the business. Strategy consulting does not deal with things like mergers and acquisitions advisory. It does not deal with taxation advisory, etc., etc. But all the other fields are quite specialized in themselves. So for example, those who are those who provide legal advisory are lawyers, there are tax consultants, etc., etc. That is why slowly this management consulting and strategy consulting have started becoming parallel words to say. But when someone says the top management consultants or top management consulting, they are typically referring to strategy consulting in general. Yeah. So three key aspects of this field. These are advisory services, which work very closely with the top management of the organization. And these are related to business strategy, performance, and processes of the business. Okay. Now I take a few examples of the type of projects that are done by management consultants, right? The consulting firms, they work with both private sector clients as well as public sector clients on some of the most, to say, pressing issues in the minds of these clients. Let's take example of some projects that would be done by a consulting firm. So one project could be related to optimization of logistics cost for cement company in India, right? There could be a large cement company. In cement company, you guys, maybe for you, it is important to know, almost 50-60% of costs of a cement company are their logistics costs. So if a company that can optimize its logistics cost well is a company that typically has the highest profit margins in the industry. So this is a very key or a strategic lever for any company. So a project could be related to optimization of the logistics cost for this cement company, right? This project would involve a lot of things that you would have studied. There would be things around optimization of network of depots, factories, and the mines, the limestone mines. Very similar to what we study in our costing, but at a very complicated and real life scale, right? Companies would have 500 plus depots. There would be 20 plus factories in the country. There will be 15 plus limestone mines from which raw material would be sourced. So it becomes a very complex network problem, which is solved only on softwares, but it is like one example of, a project that a consulting firm could be working on. Another example could be a launch of telecom services by a large conglomerate in India, right? Very recently, we saw how one of the largest business houses entered the country and it disrupted the telecom market completely. Phones available at low cost, internet available at low cost, and everyone had phone and calling services, everything at such a low cost that it disrupted the entire telecom industry of the country. So what should be the market entry of that telecom provider which has no past experience or no related business, but it wants to enter the field of telecom services, right? Then there could be a project by a textile company in India. This company says that India market is completely saturated, or there is too much competition in the prices at which this player is operating. It says that it wants to now explore new markets in, say, US and Europe and so on. Okay. So then consultants can be brought in to create the market entry strategy of this Indian textile player so that it is able to enter into United States and Europe market. Okay. Another one type of public sector consulting project could be, it is a live example of India only. Our entire tolling done on cash basis. Government decided that, okay, enough of cash, we need to move towards Hello, is anyone saying anything?
Yeah, we are able to hear you, Sanjay.
Okay, all good, all clear?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So the fourth example that I was giving is, say, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways decided that we enough of cash tolling in the country. We need to move towards digital tolling. So now, what should be the strategy of this digital tolling? How to sell fastags? How to ensure that everyone has fastags? How to ensure there is infrastructure at the toll plaza, etc., etc. So there is an entire strategy around implementation of these big ticket projects for the governments in the country. Another type of example of project could be Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, a country that has entirely been dependent on oil for last 3 or 4 decades or so. Now oil may become obsolete in next 10, 15, 20 years. So there is an entire economy that is required to diversify itself away from oil and into new ventures so that it is able to sustain itself. This can be a project, a strategic project that can be done by consultants together with the government of the country. There could be another example of, there is a agricultural startup in, say, Dubai. There is a private equity firm that wants to invest in this agricultural startup, and then the private equity firm comes up to the consultant that we want to do a due diligence of this agricultural startup on how is it performing on business, what is the future potential of the business, and so on. This is another example of the type of project that are done by a strategy consultants, right? These are also some examples of projects that I have worked on in last 8 years during my tenure at BCG, right? So you would see that these are very diverse set of projects that we do. These diverse set of projects which require you to learn something new every day and then apply it working closely with the top management of the organization, right? If you have to structure a bit these consulting firms or the consulting market, typically all the firms, they organize themselves by industry practice areas, and there are functional
Uh,
practice areas.
Sanjay, I
Yes.
think for last 1 2 minutes there was certain poor network issue. So you can
Okay.
just elaborate to last one two
Let
minutes,
me do
not
it.
more than.
Sure, sure. So I was saying that the six examples that I gave here are also examples of some projects that I have led with BCG in last 7, 8 years. So these projects you would see with strategy consulting, market in general, are very diverse in nature. You work on new topics every few days when you are on new project. You learn very fast on that topic, and then you work together with the top management of the organization to make these projects success. Okay. So while these were some real life examples of type of projects that can happen in consulting firm, and these projects can range from 6 months, from 3 months to up to 1 year. Mostly the projects are 3 to 6 months in duration, but in some cases, if it is a very big project like implementation of, say, cashless tolling, it could be a large project, a long duration project. Typically projects are 3 months to 6 months in duration. So what consulting market, it is very it is across sectors, it runs across sectors, and it runs across functional practice area, right? भाई कोई बिजनेस रन हो रहा है तो प्रॉब्लम तो किसी भी टाइप की आ सकती है. वो बिजनेस एक तो किसी भी सेक्टर में हो सकता है, and the problems that are faced by top management could be in any of the verticals of the business. So a strategy consulting would be required to solve any of these problems in any type of sectors, right? So typically, जैसे how are these consulting firms organized? There are industry practice area that you see on the bottom of this slide. So consumer practice, energy practice, financial institution, and so on, right? And then there are these industry practice area are typically sectors कि किस सेक्टर का प्रोजेक्ट है, टेलीकॉम सेक्टर रिलेटेड प्रोजेक्ट है, टीएमटी का प्रोजेक्ट है, या फिर ये प्रोजेक्ट किसी पब्लिक सेक्टर क्लाइंट के साथ है, या कंज्यूमर गुड्स रिलेटेड प्रोजेक्ट है. So one is this sector, and then second aspect is what type of problem are we trying to solve with that client in the sector. So the problem could be related to their corporate finance and strategy. It could be related to marketing, sales, pricing, etc. Problem related to operations. A lot of problems are sometimes just people and organization problems. There are issues related to risk and cyber security. Technology has started becoming a big functional area these days. Global advantage is another functional area where a firm decides how should it be presenting itself at the global level. And finally, a topic could be related to social impact. So a lot of time large firms requires their strategy for environment, sustainability, society, and so on. Okay. The good part about this is when a new consultant comes in as at junior levels, you get to work across all industry practice area. तो आपका कोई प्रोजेक्ट कंज्यूमर में भी हो सकता है, आपका प्रोजेक्ट टेलीकॉम मीडिया के अंदर भी हो सकता है. योर प्रोजेक्ट कुड बी रिलेटेड टू हेल्थ केयर ऑल्सो. एंड देन देर आर फंक्शनल प्रैक्टिस, किसी भी प्रॉब्लम से रिलेटेड आपका प्रोजेक्ट हो सकता है. Even if you join as a chartered accountant, it is likely that you do a project, your first project could be with a healthcare or a pharmaceutical client related to their global advantage. So a large pharma company can come and say, I want to enter into Australia market, you help me create a strategy for this. So even if you are a CA or whether you come from a IIT or a IIM, your projects could be very diverse and they are not related to what you have studied. They would be related to solving problems in general, right? But as you grow, so जब आप 5, 6, 8 साल तक consulting करते रहते हैं, you start developing expertise in a particular industry and in a particular functional area. So for example, now I focus mainly on public sector and I work closely with the governments around the world to solve public sector issues or the governmental issues. Okay. So while there are all these industry and functional practice area, there is one aspect that has become very, very important. This is digital, AI, and data analytics. Okay. 10 years back, strategy consulting was very different. 10 years back, it was all about industry, some functional area, creating some strategy, and so on, creating this growth share metrics, etc. etc. Now it has entirely changed. Now you go to create strategy of any firm, you can't do it unless you understand digital well, unless you understand artificial intelligence and analytics well, right? Because strategy is being created for next 15, 20 years. तो अगर डिजिटल, एआई, डेटा एनालिटिक्स, ये सारे एलिमेंट्स ही उस स्ट्रैटेजी में से मिस आउट कर दिए, तो फिर योर स्ट्रैटेजी वुड नॉट बी कंप्लीट. So it is very important, in this field and in field of strategy in general. I also believe this is also very important in auditing and our traditional fields as well, that we start as chartered accountants, we should have very thorough understanding of different concepts related to the digital AI. जरूरी नहीं है. इंपॉर्टेंट ये नहीं है कि हम खुद एआई को यूज कर सकते हैं और मशीन लर्निंग को यूज कर सकते हैं या नहीं. इंपॉर्टेंट है कि हमें इन चीजों की समझ है या नहीं, so that we can deploy and team with right type of experts to solve the problems that require such interventions. Okay.
So Sanjay, in
Yes, sir.
fact, by looking to your slides and the things which you explained, in fact, incidentally, few days back, we had a session on financial planning and analysis, FP&A.
Yeah.
And we have today Akshat Mantri also with us, who is actually working into this area at Pune in one of the consulting firms. So do you feel that if suppose someone is there into this particular field of FP&A, say for 3 to 4 years, 5 years, and then basis the various work exposure which he gets, uh, he may ultimately shift to the management consulting kind of thing. Management consulting.
It can shift. So थोड़ा सा tricky question है. मैंने presentation में cover किया है getting into management consulting also. There are 3 tiers of management consulting firms, right? There are tier 1, then there is tier 2 and so on. जो tier 1 firms होते हैं उनके criteria are very rigid and very strict, right? But some of the tier 2 firms वहां से start करके and then getting into tier 1 firm is possible. और मैं I'm happy to talk individually also to Akshit, and I can maybe guide him if that works.
Yeah, continue.
Yeah. So I was coming to this aspect that there are different type of projects and different type of skills, but there is a core of all projects that happens in consulting. This core is first principles driven problem solving. First principle driven problem solving का मतलब ये होता है कि आपने you have studied a lot, you have studied about law, regulations, accounting, etc., etc. But when you are faced with a problem, you don't try to solve it with your existing knowledge, but you try to solve it by first principle. उसको bit by bit बना करके solve करने की कोशिश करो. मैं एक example लेता हूं so that it's easier to understand. जब एलन मस्क टेस्ला के लिए बैटरीज बना रहा था अपनी कार के लिए, so his engineers came and told him that the cost of battery cannot be brought lower than $600 per kilowatt hour. Okay. But then what he did was, उसने उस बैटरी को एकदम शुरू से बनाना स्टार्ट किया. चलो मैं रॉ मटेरियल लेता हूं कि अच्छा मेरे को लिथियम चाहिए होगा, मेरे को निकल चाहिए, कोबाल्ट चाहिए, एल्यूमिनियम चाहिए, वायरिंग चाहिए, जो भी रॉ मटेरियल है उसने उसको पूरा डिसअसेंबल कर दिया बैटरी को कि 1 by 1 मेरे को ये सारे पीसेस चाहिए एक बैटरी बनाने के लिए. ये पीसेस इतनी क्वांटिटी के अंदर चाहिए, इस क्वांटिटी के बाद में इस तरीके से मेरा सर्किट दिखाई देता है बैटरी का, और इस तरीके से मेरी बैटरी फंक्शन करती है. तो अगर मैं इसे पीस बाय पीस बनाना चालू करूं एंड आई स्टार्ट सोर्सिंग रॉ मटेरियल डायरेक्टली फ्रॉम द अल्टीमेट सप्लायर, तो मैं इस कॉस्ट को कितना लेकर के जा सकता हूं. तो सीधा जो कॉस्ट $600 पर किलोवाट आवर आ रही थी बिफोर टेस्ला बैटरी वाज मैन्युफैक्चर्ड, ही स्लैश्ड इट डाउन टू आई थिंक $50-60 पर किलोवाट आवर. और नाउ इट इज इवन कमिंग डाउन ग्रेजुअली इवन मोर. सो द आइडिया इज कि आपके जो एग्जिस्टिंग प्रिंसिपल्स हैं, एग्जिस्टिंग अजम्पशंस हैं, you break those existing assumptions, you break down the problems into small building blocks, and आप वहां से उस ब्लॉक को जोड़ना चालू करें and you start seeing कि इस प्रॉब्लम को कैसे सॉल्व किया जा सकता है, right? Because as a CA, when you come to a pharmaceutical project, you would have no understanding of how pharma is working, etc. But what you would know is आप फर्स्ट प्रिंसिपल से देख सकते हो कि अच्छा मेरे को ये दवाई बनानी है, क्या क्या रॉ मटेरियल इसके लिए लगता है, क्या क्या कॉस्टिंग आती है उसकी डिमांड कितनी है, उस डिमांड पर हम अगर अपनी स्केल पर जितने पर ऑपरेट करना चाहते हैं तो क्या हम प्रॉफिटेबल हो सकते हैं, अगर हो सकते हैं तो कौन से ईयर तक प्रॉफिटेबल हो सकते हैं, एंड देन बाय विच ईयर वी कैन व्हाट वी हैव स्टडीड. बट उन सबको हम छोटा ब्रेक डाउन करके फर्स्ट प्रिंसिपल से सॉल्व करने की कोशिश करते हैं. ओके. I would urge, those of you who are more interested in strategy consulting should read about first principle driven problem solving, how it has been applied by some of the greatest invention in the world, and how it is applied by some of the modern organizations in the world, right? So this is a gist of the type of work that is done in strategy consulting. Now, if I come to the strategy consulting market itself, it's a very nascent market to say. Why do I say nascent? Auditing की history है 200 से ज़्यादा साल की, more than 200 years. Strategy consulting, I think the first strategy consulting firm was McKinsey, which was also established only in 1926. The other big two are BCG and Bain, which were established in 1960s and 70s. So globally, strategy consulting market सिर्फ पिछले 100 साल का market है. और उसमें भी जो थोड़ा डेवलप होने लगा है, that is in last 40-50 years that it has started expanding at a very fast pace. If I talk about India, the market is a market of last 15 to 20 years only. So the base is so small right now that the pace of growth of this market has been huge. Globally 20% से ज़्यादा speed पर this market is growing, and in India it is growing at a even fast scale, right? This is one message. मैंने रेवेन्यू नंबर्स, ये मार्केट 50 बिलियन डॉलर का है या 100 बिलियन डॉलर का, ये जानबूझकर निकाल दिया है, बिकॉज दैट इज नॉट इंपॉर्टेंट. व्हाट इज इंपॉर्टेंट इज मार्केट इज ग्रोइंग फास्ट पेस. Second thing is that the market still has a lot of white spaces, right? I think now taking it, so it is every country around the world, it is already present. Every country would be some sort of service. That is not something done by all the countries. There is all the white spaces that exist in the market. And I started picking up. I can give you an example. Last week, the government has started a new project for making UP a $1 economy over the next 5 years, and they have appointed a.
Your voice is breaking actually. Sorry to interrupt. Your voice is breaking. We cannot hear you properly.
Is it better now, or is it the same?
Yeah, it is better now. Yeah.
Okay. Was it for last 10-15 minutes? How long was it breaking?
It was for 2 minutes, last 2 minutes.
Sorry, I meant seconds only, not 10-15 minutes. But okay. So I was saying, you all can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. So I was saying that the market is still nascent. मतलब पिछले 20 years से it is growing. It has started developing and maturing in India, and globally also it is only a 50-60 years kind of market. But इसकी वजह से base is very small and the pace of growth is very high. And second thing is there are a lot of white spaces. So बहुत सारी countries around the world अभी strategy consulting को पूरी तरीके से exploit नहीं करती हैं, and a lot of companies and governments are also not exploiting it, though the trend is changing in last few years. I was giving one example of a project from UP government that was recently started. I think in last week only it was in news that Deloitte Monitor will start a project to make Uttar Pradesh a $1 trillion economy in coming years, right? So now slowly a lot of state governments, a lot of private sector players have also started picking it up. Okay. If I move to the market landscape of what is strategy consulting made up of, there are 3 tiers of firms. There is a top 3 consulting firms. They are also called the MBBs, BMBs, whatever, which is the BCG, Bain and McKinsey. Then there are tier 2 firms. These are only in strategy consulting, but not as big in size as the top 3 in terms of their strategy consulting revenue. These are likes of A.T. Kearney, Oliver Wyman, Accenture, and so on. And then there are accounting firms which have started investing heavily into strategy consulting now, right? So in last 10 years, most of these accounting firms have actually done mergers or taken over with boutique strategy consulting firm to create their strong consulting arm. So EY took over Parthenon and इन्होंने EY Parthenon create किया. Deloitte took over Monitor and Monitor Deloitte बना. PwC ने strategy and को acquire किया. KPMG is the only one which is still on their own, but also looking to acquire and to become big in consulting. So because this is a growing market, it has been a focus area of a lot of firms around the world right now. I spent some time now on what is career at a strategy consulting firm like, right? So 3 aspects that can define career. It is extremely fast paced, okay? It is extremely dynamic, and you would be teaming with the sharpest minds, around the world. Why I say fast paced? Because ये projects होंगे, most of these projects would be say sometimes 3 months. 3 महीने के अंदर आपको एक project मिल गया मीडिया इंडस्ट्री के अंदर जिसके बारे में आपको लिमिटेड इंफॉर्मेशन है, तो फर्स्ट वीक और 2 तो आपको उतनी ही पढ़ाई करनी पड़ेगी जितनी आपकी सीए का एक सब्जेक्ट को क्लियर करने के लिए करनी पड़ती है, सो दैट यू अंडरस्टैंड मीडिया बिजनेस वेल. अब आप मीडिया वाले बिजनेस के टॉप मैनेजमेंट के साथ में इफ यू हैव टू डू मीटिंग्स, यू कांट कम ओवर एज अ amateur in that field. You will have to learn a lot about media, right? सेकेंड थिंग इज इट इज फास्ट पेस बिकॉज 3 महीने आपने मीडिया किया, पता चला, और 3 महीने बाद आपको एक नया प्रोजेक्ट मिला विच इज एन एक्सट्रीमली डिफरेंट फील्ड related to say ऑटोमोबाइल एंड ऑटो पार्ट्स. सो फिर आपको ऑटोमोबाइल रिलेटेड पार्ट्स पे पढ़ाई करना चालू करना पड़ेगा बिकॉज दैट इज द प्रोजेक्ट यू वुड बी वर्किंग ऑन, राइट? So this makes it very dynamic and very fast paced. And third very good part is because these consulting firms they hire the best of the talent, तो आपकी जो टीम होगी और जिन लोगों के साथ आपको काम करने को मिलेगा, those would be the brightest and the sharpest mind. तो मजा आएगा. So there would be, the days would be very tough, but there would not be a single boring day in life, and there would not be a single day where you are not learning in life. आपको हर दिन एक नई चीज जानने को, सीखने को, लर्न करने को मिलेगी. So this is characteristics of the work. If you look at कि एक typical career trajectory क्या होती है, so most of these firms have a similar kind of career trajectory कि जो fresh MBA और CA होते हैं, they join as associate and senior associate. In couple of years they become consultant. In another 2 or 3 years they become project leaders. In another 2 or 3 years they become principals, and then depending on business they become partners, right? There is one important part to know that most of strategy consulting business, similar to say a investment banking or a private equity business, is working on a up or out philosophy. What does up or out philosophy means? It means या तो आप हर 2 साल के अंदर आपका प्रमोशन हो जाएगा 2 से 3 साल के अंदर, या फिर the firm will tell you that you should start looking for opportunities outside because you are not keeping pace with the growth that is expected in the firm, right? So it is an extremely steep kind of career path, highly rewarding, but it is very intense. But as at academicians that we are, it is something that is a thrill to have. It is like a ride that you take in amusement park. अगर slow हो जाएगी तो मजा नहीं आता, वो बहुत स्पीड से चलती है तभी मजा आता रहता है. Then what are typical exit opportunities? So consulting up or out philosophy पर based है. But once a person is out of these, MBBs or these strategy consulting firm, these consultants are a hot commodity with a very high demand. They get placed within few days in very good roles, either in industry. Industry means आप जिन client के साथ काम कर रहे होते हैं, वही client आपको बोलते हैं कि okay, join strategy team with in my organization itself. Or people typically move to private equity firms and VC firms. People also move to become public sector leaders, especially with the dynamic governments that we are getting now around the world. A lot of these governments are willing to give positions and designations to people from private sector, which were earlier reserved for bureaucratic admission. तो जैसे इंडिया का एग्जांपल लें तो आपको टॉप पोस्ट पर गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर के अंदर जाने के लिए आईएएस इज नो लॉन्गर द ओनली वे. You could be very experienced in private sector and then join a top position in public sector as well. A lot of startups are made up by ex-consultants, and then final option is freelancing or independent consulting, या फिर अपनी भाषा में बोलें तो खुद की प्रैक्टिस करना. तो बहुत सारे consultants होते हैं, they start doing it on their own and directly advising client, or they advise client on a subcontract basis to other firms. Yeah. Now comes कि अच्छा बहुत सारी कहानी हो गई. The $1 million question that comes is कि how to get into strategy consulting, right? So this I have divided into 2 parts. The big 3 firms, which is McKinsey, BCG and Bain, and tier 2 firms. ये firms बहुत picky होती हैं in terms of the selection, sourcing of the candidate. तो जो the sourcing is also very picky. So they will say कि हम only ये 10 academic institutes हैं, हम सिर्फ यहाँ से पढ़े हुए बंदे का recruitment करेंगे as a fresher, right? So ICI or a chartered accountant is one of the course where they are willing to do admission directly from, right? Second is, even in those specific institute, they might say कि हम specific courses में से ये admission लेंगे, बाकी courses से admission नहीं लेंगे. So example, they can say कि हम IIM अहमदाबाद, बैंगलोर, कैलकाटा, लखनऊ और कोझिकोड है, सिर्फ इन 5 institute से selection करेंगे, बाकी किसी से नहीं करेंगे, even if it is IIM. And within this institute also, it should be a 2 years degree course and not a diploma course. So ऐसे बहुत strict criteria are laid out in terms of a fresher getting into consulting firm. From a CA point of view, as a fresher, if you have to say go into the strategy consulting, especially in these big 3 or tier 2 firms, it is related, the criteria is आपका या तो rank हो 2 और 2 या एक किसी भी एक level pe of the 3 levels that we have, and you should have a very good articleship exposure from good firm, right? So there are very strict criteria for selection of candidates of their CV. So wonderful academics, the exposure should be great, and there should be a great X factor that people should have on their CV. X factor basically, could be related to anything. It could be related to your extracurriculars, कि आपने सिंगिंग में या किसी भी फील्ड में मचाया हो जो बोलते हैं, और यू आर वेरी पैशनेट अबाउट एनी ऑफ द टॉपिक्स दैट यू क्रिएट, राइट ब्लॉग्स, आपके इंस्टाग्राम के ट्रैवल पेजेस हैं जहां पर से 5,000 10,000 फॉलोअर्स हैं एंड सो ऑन, राइट? So this is, as a fresher, if you have to go into a big 3 tier 2 firm, it's a bit tough. But if you are aspiring CA, तो आप रैंक लाने का एम कर सकते हैं, and then it is a route that is open for you. Now, what about people who are जो CA बन चुके हैं, which are now looking for opportunities? So then there is, to start with, accounting firms are slightly less picky in terms of the candidates that they want to hire, right? Even this interviews are tough, selection process is tough, but it is not as stringent as a big 3 kind of a selection firm, right? So thoda flexible criteria hota hai, and then 2 ya 3 saal if you work in any of these big 4 firms in their strategy consulting division, then you can apply for the the McKinseys and the BCGs and try to get selection there. As often it is said, these big 4 firms are the training ground of the consultants for the big 3 and tier 2 firm selection, right? So typically एक process किस तरीके से चलता है? What is the process like? Process followed is, first there is a CV shortlisting. This is the toughest part of the entire process, जिसमें वो academics भी अच्छे देखते हैं, exposure होना चाहिए, X factor होना चाहिए, और if you don't have academics तो आपका बहुत अच्छा experience say in a Deloitte monitor या फिर किसी और firm के अंदर होना चाहिए in strategy consulting field specifically. Then there is a phase, if once your CV is selected, there is a phase of interview preparation. Interview preparation के अंदर most of these consulting firms would assign you a buddy होगा जो 2 या 3 साल से इन firm में काम कर रहा है. He helps you prepare for the interviews of these firms, and he does a lot of interviews with the candidate to help him crack the real interview process, right? And then third level पे आता है the real case interviews that happens. So case interviews typically 4 से 5 round होते हैं in most of these firms. These rounds are taken by principals and partners. And then what is tested, case interview का मतलब है कि कोई real life project आपको दे दिया जाएगा, and you would be required to solve that and discuss that project in real life. तो आप interview देने आए, आपसे बोल दिया गया कि एक there is a mobile company जिसके billing cost बहुत high है. How can you help this company reduce the billing cost? या आपको कुछ गेस्टिमेट टाइप का क्वेश्चन दे दिया जाएगा से हाउ मेनी कार्स डू यू थिंक आर इन दुबई राइट नाउ, एंड देन यू वुड बी रिक्वायर्ड टू एस्टिमेट दिस क्वेश्चन. While you are estimating and discussing this, the interviewer checks your how are you solving problem, what is your communication and presence, and what are your core skills, right? There is also one more thing that people typically check. It is called the airport test. एयरपोर्ट टेस्ट का मतलब होता है कि एक बंदा कितना इंटरेस्टिंग है. एयरपोर्ट टेस्ट है कि अगर जिस बंदे का मैं इंटरव्यू ले रहा हूं उस बंदे के साथ मैं 5 घंटे एक एयरपोर्ट पर स्टक हो गया क्योंकि मेरी फ्लाइट डिले है, तो इस बंदे के साथ बात करने में मेरे को मजा आएगा या नहीं आएगा. तो ये एयरपोर्ट टेस्ट भी इवैल्यूएट किया जाता है इन एडिशन टू द प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग एंड कम्युनिकेशन स्किल्स when selection of any candidate is under question. So team, this is what I wanted to share as a part of my presentation. Maybe I can take a pause and rather check if any of you have any questions, you would like to discuss anything or add to anything to the discussion.
So any of the participants have any query? So we we have query from Lakshya. So Lakshya, please.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah,
Am
good
I
evening,
audible?
Lakshya.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today and illuminating our minds. Uh, I have a query. Like, if you have heard about business analyst in corporate world, business analyst. So, what is the basic difference between business analyst and management consultant? Is there any difference, or they are same?
No, they are very different. Business analyst, first of all, business analyst थोड़ा सा vague designation है, right? कैसे हो सकता है एक बंदा बिजनेस एनालिस्ट हो इन हिंदुस्तान यूनिलीवर इन फाइनेंस डिवीजन, सो ही कुड बी डूइंग थिंग्स वेरी स्पेसिफिकली रिलेटेड टू कि अगर नए प्रोजेक्ट में इन्वेस्टमेंट करना है तो वो उसका एनालिसिस कर रहा होगा एंड उससे रिलेटेड बिजनेस एनालिस्ट हो सकता है, राइट? So this business analyst typically in an industry role would be having a set projects that he would be working on and a set function that he would be working on. Okay. एक बिजनेस एनालिस्ट अगर एक इंडस्ट्री रोल पर है तो ऐसा नहीं होगा वो कि उसको एचआर रिलेटेड प्रॉब्लम्स भी उस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के सॉल्व करने को मिल रहे हैं एंड ही इज आल्सो रिक्वायर्ड टू सॉल्व फाइनेंस रिलेटेड और मार्केटिंग रिलेटेड प्रॉब्लम्स आल्सो ऑफ दैट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. इट इज टिपिकली फंक्शन बेस्ड, एक ही फंक्शन के अंदर होगा और एक स्पेसिफिक रोल होगा. ओके. Then it could also vary a lot based on different organization. There could be a business analyst which is more into data analytics in one of the firms, but the same business analyst designation in another firm could be more related to financial reporting, who is helping prepare financial statements, right? So business analyst, where it becomes similar is that some of these strategy consulting firm, they call their associates, instead of associate they call them business analyst. Wahan par business analyst is very similar to the consultant that we are referring to, but in an industry role business analyst is different.
Shruti will be asking you.
Good evening, sir. Sir, I have a question that business advisory services in Big Four is similar to what the management consultant does.
It is similar to what a management consultant does. Yes, the transaction advisory services and business advisory services of the Big Fours are closely related to the strategic advisory services that are performed by Big Four or the other firms. But typically एक difference होता है. ट्रांजैक्शन एडवाइजरी सर्विसेज और जो बिजनेस एडवाइजरी सर्विसेज हैं, they are slightly less strategic in nature as compared to the strategy consulting services. तो बिग फोर, this becomes more of a problem for big four कि उनके पास में एक प्रोजेक्ट आया है, whether they want to qualify it as a and send it to their business advisory division or they want to send it to their strategy consulting division. This call is made based on कि प्रोजेक्ट कितना स्ट्रैटेजिक नेचर का है. अगर प्रोजेक्ट ज्यादा स्ट्रैटेजिक नेचर का है तो इट इज सेंट टू द स्ट्रैटेजी कंसल्टिंग यूनिट, बट अगर प्रोजेक्ट कम स्ट्रैटेजिक नेचर का है या फिर लो स्केल्ड है थोड़ा सा, तो उसको बिजनेस एडवाइजरी सर्विसेज में दिया जाता है. एंड दिस इज ऑल्सो रिफ्लेक्टिव, टिपिकली the fees that is taken for those type of projects. Most of the strategy consulting projects are at a very high premium as compared to the business advisory or the transaction advisory services that are done even within the Big Fours.
Anyone else have any query? Divyansh? Divyanshu?
Yes, sir.
Divyansh, Sanjay, Divyansh is presently at UAE only.
Nice.
He works with PKF International. Do you have any query, Divyansh?
Not yet. I'll ask him personally if I have any.
Priyanshi have a query, so please. So we have Priyanshi in our conference room.
Sir, I have
a query, like in consultancy, we have like one project, and in that project we have to work like all of the departments, like taxation, indirect taxation, law, like from tip to toe, everything in a particular project. Like, or it will be on a particular function, like it will be on a direct taxation, or it will be on direct taxation, or it can be a mixture of all.
Yeah.
So
No.
बेसिकली हमें नॉलेज किस लाइक पर्टिकुलर एक सब्जेक्ट को लेकर के रहेगी या फिर किस चीज को लेकर के रहेगी तो
नहीं, okay. If I heard the question correctly, the question is कि is the मतलब project related होता है direct tax, indirect tax, law, किस चीज से project related होता है, किसी एक field से होगा या it can be related to all of these together. So first my question, first answer is strategy consulting is not related to taxation and law at all. तो मैंने अपने 8 साल में और किसी भी strategy consulting firm में we never give tax advice and we never give legal advice. Okay, projects are typically related to the strategies of the firm, right? So कि जैसे अगर मान लो स्ट्रैटेजी हो सकती है कि हमारे को यूएस मार्केट के अंदर एक्सपैंड करना है, राइट? उसका जो स्ट्रैटेजिक और ऑपरेशनल प्लान है वो पूरा स्ट्रैटेजी कंसल्टेंट बना देता है, बट द टैक्स implication and legal implication of this strategy are being advised by tax consultants and legal consultants respectively. The strategy consultant will never go and provide advice on legal or taxation aspect, not even on accounting aspects, auditing aspects as well. The core is just problem solving कि आप strategic problems solve करेंगे जाकर के जो आपकी client होगा उनकी.
अक्षत, गोयल, you are raising hand. अक्षत, आप अपना वीडियो ऑन करेंगे?
Yes. Sir, I actually wanted to ask. I have heard that in these MBB firms, the working hours, the lifestyle is quite tiresome, like 70, 80 hours a week. So how is that sustainable in the long run? Like you have worked for 8 years, you say. So how is that sustainable?
Work-life balance is it's a very personal concept, right? I did not. There are days. So for me, work-life balance is not on every day basis, right? There would be projects which are so tough कि कभी कभी मेरे को 2-3 दिन लगातार भी काम करने पड़ रहे हैं और मैं रात को 2-3 घंटे भी सो रहा हूँ तो भी चल रहा है, right? There could be 2-3-4 weeks sometimes कि बहुत हेक्टिक है, लगातार काम चल रहा है बट चल रहा है. But once the project is over, I could just take a break for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I can relax so that I can come back refreshed, right? So for me, what is important is कि मतलब I don't make it a bottleneck in my head कि अरे यार मेरे को 15 घंटे काम करना पड़ गया. कभी कभी आप काम के अंदर इतना खो जाते हो that you don't even realize कि सुबह से शाम हो गई है और रात हो गई है, प्रोजेक्ट चल रहा है, आपको उसमें इंटरेस्ट आ रहा है. If there is a product launch or if there is a market launch by a big firm that is on a set date, तो उस तारीख तक सारा काम खत्म करना पड़ेगा, तभी प्रोडक्ट का लॉन्च हो सकता है. प्रोडक्ट लॉन्च को 100 जगह पर, 1000 जगह पर एडवर्टाइज कर दिया जा चुका, मैं थोड़ा सा अभी रिलैक्स करना चाहता हूं and the product launch becomes a risk. So rather what you do is you spend too much time, a lot of time to ensure the product launch is success. But once successful, you party very hard, you get a different form of satisfaction कि ये product launch बहुत successful हुआ आपकी वजह से, and then you can also take a break if required, right? So for me it is a concept of it's about how passionately you are involved in a topic, that you don't feel it a burden, but you rather enjoy even those moments where you are stretched. I think this is only reason why I've been able to do it for 8 years and enjoying it and look forward to continue doing it.
Okay, sir.
Anyone else have any query?
Okay, Sanjay, I'm Akshat. I qualified in May 21. Currently, I'm working at FP&A division in a IT fintech kind of firm. Basically, we are in EPM consulting, and we provide end-to-end solutions for EPM softwares like SAC, SAP, SAC, and Aplanam. So, not particularly in the strategic consulting, but do you see any future or, any good advantage in the future about this?
No, I mean, absolutely. The future is bright for everything related to IT architecture, software, digital. These are this is where the world is moving towards. So the future is very bright. The area you are working in is very, is a expertise of a particular field. So while it does not apply to strategy consulting directly, बट जो स्ट्रैटेजी कंसल्टिंग फर्म्स होते हैं उसके अंदर भी छोटे छोटे सब डिविजन्स होते हैं. सो फॉर एग्जांपल बीसीजी हैज अ गामा, अ प्लैटिनियन एटसेट्रा. वहां पर सॉफ्टवेयर एज अ सर्विस प्रोवाइड किया जाता है. वहां पर आईटी आर्किटेक्चर एक्सपर्ट होते हैं. सो स्ट्रैटेजी कंसल्टिंग might not be the field, but ये जो सब divisions होते हैं, there you might get specific job openings that could be relevant for you. Strategy consulting is more of a generalist kind of field. उसमें no type of specialization is looked into, especially at entry level positions in strategy consulting. But some of these IT related जो roles होते हैं, वहां पर you could find a good match. And not only for BCG, what I can suggest to all of you is to visit the websites of all these firms that I mentioned, even the big fours, the tier 2 firms, the BCG, McKinsey, and so on. And you can look at their career pages ki kis type ki profiles they are looking for, what are type of skills that they want. You can check on LinkedIn कि इन specific firms के अंदर किस प्रोफाइल के लोग जॉब करते हैं and what is the career paths that have been followed by them, and that can give you an advice of what could be a good fit for you.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Anyone else have any query? So I think most of the queries which are there have been asked by the participants. And Sanjay, you want to say anything as a closing remarks from your side?
Just that's it. Wonderful to talk to all of you, right? Always there to help. You can reach out through different networks, right? If I can provide any type of guidance, always up for it. I enjoy talking to young students, aspiring new CAs. Always up for it.
So, thank you, Sanjay, for being with us today on my special request. Guide all our students on the opportunities in the area of management consulting. And in fact, इन लोगों की तो लर्निंग डेफिनेटली हुई है, साथ ही साथ मेरी भी एक लर्निंग हुई है कि क्या एक सोच रखते हैं जो भी बड़ी कंसर्न्स हैं, बड़ी कंसल्टिंग फर्म्स हैं. So that certainly give an idea to you also that किस तरीके से हमें भी आगे बढ़ना चाहिए in all these aspects. So it was really a quite learning session for me also, apart from all the other participants. So I'm sure that this will help them to choose right career path as and when they will be giving their interviews and choosing the organizations for that matter. मेरी एक सजेशन इन लोगों को हमेशा ये रहती है कि आप थोड़ा एंटरप्राइजिंग बनने की कोशिश करो, बजाय इसके कि एक रेगुलर वे में आपने कोई एक जॉब किया हो. तो आई एम श्योर दैट जिस तरीके का स्किल सेट मैनेजमेंट कंसल्टिंग के लिए चाहिए होता है, वो मतलब इट इज नॉट विद रेफरेंस टू दी a good knowledge on accounting, taxation, laws and all that. But apart from that, you should have a versatile skills also. जो मुझे लगता है कि कहीं ना कहीं मैनेजमेंट कंसल्टिंग फर्म जो है वो देखती है कि एक लोगों को कैसे डील करना है, कैसे एक आउट ऑफ द बॉक्स थिंकिंग रखनी है फॉर सॉल्विंग एनी पर्टिकुलर इश्यू. So that is what actually the management consulting firm sees in the candidates. So I'm sure that this will help, or this today's session will help all of you. So with this, thank you, Sanjay, again for being with us. And इन लोगों को जब भी जरूरत पड़ेगी तो I will share your contacts. They can WhatsApp you and have any further clarification, whatever they require, individually or collectively, whatever way they want. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanjay.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for having me. Nice session. Always nice talking. Hopefully we catch up soon, sir. Next time if you are in Dubai or when I come to Jaipur.
Certainly, certainly. I have plans, so I will let you know. Okay,
Perfect.
thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.